Today, we are diving into the absolutely wild story of the first great financial bubble in history, Tulip Mania. Now, I know it's a tale from the 1600s, but stick with me because the lessons it holds about money, markets, and, well, human nature are probably more relevant today than you'd ever guess. Just look at that number, 10,000 guilders. Back in the Dutch Golden Age, that was a staggering amount of money. I mean, more than a skilled craftsman would earn in their entire lifetime. It was enough to completely change a family's fortune forever. So what on earth could possibly be worth that much? You'd think a grand house right on an Amsterdam canal, right? Or something else? You're not going to believe it, but for a short, absolutely manic period, that was the going price for a single flower bulb. Let's get into how that even happened. Okay, so first, we have to start with the popular legend of Tulip Mania. The dramatic story that's been passed down for centuries as the ultimate cautionary tale about greed. According to the story, at the very peak of this frenzy, this is what one Viceroy tulip bulb was worth. We're talking 4 oxen, a dozen sheep, 1,000 pounds of cheese. I mean, it's a literal lifetime's worth of goods, enough to feed and house an entire family for years, all for one flower that hadn't even bloomed yet. It's just incredible. So how did we get here? How does a simple flower become the most sought-after luxury item in what was then the wealthiest nation on Earth? Well, it all kicks off during the Dutch Golden Age. First off, tulips weren't even from Holland. They originally came from the Ottoman Empire before making their way to Europe. And when they arrived, their intense, vibrant colors were a total sensation. In the newly rich Dutch Republic, where merchants suddenly had all this cash to spend on exotic luxuries, the tulip very quickly became the ultimate status symbol. But here's the thing, not all tulips were created equal. The most valuable ones, by a long shot, were these broken tulips, like the famous Semper Augustus. And get this, their beautiful flame-like patterns were actually caused by a virus. This virus made them stunning, sure, but it also made them incredibly rare and hard to reproduce, which of course only made people want them more. This intense desire for these rare bulbs naturally created a market, but pretty soon the market stopped being about the flowers themselves. It became about pure speculation, trading on promises and, well, thin air. The Dutch had a great name for it, windhandel, which literally means wind trade. It was basically an early futures market. People weren't trading actual bulbs. They were just trading paper contracts that promised to buy a bulb at a set price months down the line. This let the market move at lightning speed. And you can see on this timeline just how fast things went off the rails. Speculators started jumping in around 1634. By the winter of 36, it was a full-blown mania. Prices weren't just high, they were going up exponentially. It was a classic bubble, just waiting to pop, which it did in February 1637. At the absolute height of the madness, some of these paper contracts were supposedly changing hands up to 10 times in a single day. Everyone was just trying to make a quick buck before passing it on to the next person. A market that's built on nothing but the belief that prices will go up forever, well, it only has one direction to go, eventually, down. And the story of the crash is every bit as dramatic as the rise. The whole system was propped up by confidence. And then, one day in February 1637, at a routine auction in a town called Haarlem, the buyers just didn't show up. That was it. That one little event pricked the bubble. Suddenly, everyone realized the music had stopped, and they all made a mad dash for the exits at the same time. So that's the classic story, right? A whole nation gripped by madness, followed by total economic devastation. But what if that story, the one we've all heard, isn't the whole truth? I mean, did this flower craze really bring the world's leading economic power to its knees? Did hardworking people actually lose their homes and fortunes overnight? Well, historians decided to go back and look at the actual records, and what they found, it completely changes the story. This slide really breaks it down, the legend versus the facts. While the myth tells us about a nationwide catastrophe, modern research shows the trade was actually limited to a pretty small network of wealthy merchants. When historians dug through the archives, they found almost no bankruptcies, and the wider Dutch economy, it barely even noticed. The real crisis wasn't economic at all. It was a social one, a crisis of broken contracts and betrayed trust among a small club of speculators. So where did this epic myth of ruin even come from? Well, it was mostly made famous by a book from the 1800s, and that book based its story on propaganda pamphlets from the 1630s. See, these pamphlets weren't history. They were moralizing tales written to warn people against greed and new money. The dramatic stories weren't fact. They were exaggerations meant to teach a lesson. And maybe the story has survived this long because, let's be honest, we all love a good cautionary tale. But here's the most important part. Even if the story was overblown, the financial lessons at its heart are incredibly real and absolutely timeless. Tulip Mania, whether it's myth or reality, gives us the perfect blueprint for understanding just about every speculative bubble that's happened since. The whole affair really leaves us with 4 huge lessons. Number 1, price is not the same as value. The two became totally disconnected. 2, beware of the herd. That fear of missing out, FOMO, is a powerful force that can lead you right off a cliff. 3, your emotions are your worst financial advisor. Greed and fear make for terrible, irrational decisions. And 4, a big one, you have to understand what you actually own, not just what you hope you can sell it for. You know, this quote from the father of value investing, Benjamin Graham, just nails it. The story of Tulip Mania isn't really about flowers, is it? It's about us. It's about human psychology. It shows how our own emotions can be the biggest risk in any market. So while the details have changed, the patterns of human behavior, they're exactly the same. This story from nearly 400 years ago really forces us to ask a tough question. What are the tulips of today? What assets out there are being valued not for what they are, but for what people are hoping they'll become? To explore more moments just like this one that have shaped our financial world and to learn the timeless lessons they hold, make sure you subscribe to Money Lessons by History. Thanks so much for watching.